K-Rugs, the Sober Dog. Today I'm going to tell you about November, why it's so hard, solitary, prison, all of it culminated, suicide attempts, smuggling, getting my ass beat by the guards. All of it culminated in November, and that's why I want to do November Solitary Month. It's a tough month, but I gotten a ton of support from everybody. Thank you. Staying on my recovery, doubling my recovery program to get through all the holidays. You guys are awesome. Let's get into the video. Last couple videos, if you missed them, check them out, because I went from living like a king in prison. Literally, it was kind of a joke. That's why I titled the video Living Like Goodfellas in Prison. Eating pasta, working out, getting high. You know, it was just this routine that was unbelievably easy. And as long as you minded your own business, you didn't have a charge against women or children, and you didn't gangbang, you could coast through your time and not, you know, you might get in a couple fights, but you're just like, they just kind of, you do your shit. And I found a good crew that we watched each other's back. And then we literally just ate pasta, worked out, and got high all day. It was kind of a joke. So as I told you guys, it all came to an end. I got busted. Once you get busted and get on the radar as somebody who's using drugs, it's like game over. They are monitoring you now. So go to solitary, get 30 days. First night in there, I smoked a cigarette that I brought in with me, which you're not allowed to. Got caught, get another 30 days added on. My mentality shot now. I just went from 30 to 60. Around day 30 in solitary, I start losing my mind seriously. Get a bunch of pills from my neighbor, his medication, my medication, anyone's medication I could get. Fishing their medication, fishing getting it. And I tried to kill myself. I was going to eat them all. Got caught with the pills and got 90 days added on. So my 30-day failed drug test is now 150 days in solitary. And what pissed me off, the smoking I take full blame for, the failing the drug test, full blame. The medication one pisses me off a little bit because they knew what I was doing with that. They went through every pill. None of them were pills that had ever been found in the prison as people getting high off of. They were blood pressure medication, diabetes pills, metformin, things like that, that there's no benefit of getting high on. They knew what I was doing, and I talked to mental health prior to that. And they still gave me 90 days for it. So whatever, 90 days for trying to kill yourself because you're in solitary losing your mind is a little crazy to me. I get out of solitary and I go to a new prison. When you do more than 45 days in solitary in New York, they send you to a different prison after you get out. Why? I don't know. It's just how they do things. So that probably has changed because of the pandemic. They don't want to move around as much, but I get to this new spot. It's closer to where I live. It's a good spot, Groveland. I'm there, but my mind is just shot. So I end up the first like 20 to 30 days at this new spot. I try to be good, but I just can't. My mind is gone from this solitary. So I'm like squeezing on an edge not to use drugs, and I end up giving in and I'm starting to get high again. Get called for a drug test, fail that drug test. So go back to the hearing, tier 3 hearing. She gives me 90 days in solitary. I just got out of solitary, I think it was November 2nd or November 1st. This is 2015. I'm now on November 23rd or 24th. And I'm back in solitary for 90 days. I didn't even last 1 month at this new prison. I cannot explain the torture going on in my brain when I was sitting in the solitary at this different jail, going back to solitary for another 90 days. There could not have been a worse hell on earth. I make the mistake once again of bringing stuff in with me because now I definitely know how bad solitary is. So now, before I went, the day before they came to take me, I took as many sleeping pills as I could and up the suitcase, and I'm bringing it in with me. I'm hoping, okay, I'm either gonna need to kill myself or sleep away as much time as I can. And I was planning on suicide again because I knew how bad solitary was, and I can't do another 90 days. That's impossible, literally impossible. I will go certifiably insane. So I'm in there, and Groveland has a small solitary unit. It's for 30 days or less. If you are at Groveland and you get sentenced to more than 30 days solitary, you don't stay at their unit. You get transferred out to a big solitary unit to do long-term time. So I'm there, and they come to my cell and they say, pack up, you're leaving. Okay. I pack up, and when I say pack up what they don't know. So they go to search me before I leave, and I had something sticking out my butt from the glove that I had up there of the tobacco and the pills. So the guard runs to the sergeant. He's got something up there, Sarge. So I grabbed everything. I mushed up the little bit that was sticking out that I had that I could, mushed it up, spit on it, trying to get it to a blob of nothing, because I would rather have them find a little glove that was a blob of, you know, mush than actual like sleeping pills, because then they could charge me with the sleeping pills. So they come back over, they see it on the ground, they don't know what it is, they bag it up for testing, and the sergeant says to the guards, bring him back to his cell and bring him back hard. I'm freaking out. I can't really comprehend at the time what this means, but they bring me back to my cell and they bash my head against every single cell door on the way to my own cell. Now I'm cuffed behind my back, so I can't put up and block. Boom, 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 boom. Throw me in the cell with the cuffs on, totally against regulation. I'm sitting there, my nose is gushing, you know, just bleeding. I'm on the ground. I can barely get up because my arms are behind my back. They come back an hour later, undo, it might have been like 30 minutes, undo the cuffs and leave me in there. The whole point of all this, that physical kind of beatdown sucked, but I would take that beatdown every single day of the week for 30 days over 30 days of solitary. Not even a question in my mind. I get out of solitary November 1st. It's now November 25th, 26th, right around Thanksgiving. I'm back in solitary. 90 days I have. I just got in trouble 30 seconds ago for smuggling, so I know I got more time coming too. The pain of having to spend another 3+ months in solitary was unbearable. I tried to commit suicide that night. They caught me, brought me to the medical unit, and put me on suicide watch. I'm sitting in suicide watch. Not only are they monitoring me for trying to kill myself, they're monitoring me to see if I have anything else shoved up there, so I'm on shit watch. I'm in the medical unit. It's got a big window. That's the only nice part. And I'm watching everybody on Thanksgiving Day walk to the mess hall to get their big Thanksgiving meal that they serve for general population. Nothing in my life was ever as bad as this day. It was just, I can't explain it. I can't comprehend it that much. And you know, in general, I have no one to blame but myself. I know that. I'm completely aware of that. But it still is not a system that is set up where people with mental health issues trying to commit suicide are just getting more solitary time. The whole point, I don't think any of these infractions, nonviolent infractions, should have amounted in the amount of solitary that they did. And New York State Court agreed with that in 2016, and a huge lawsuit went into effect, and that's actually gotten shrunk big time. Everything I did when I was in prison, if that would have happened now, I would have done a total of about 60 days in solitary compared to 12 months and 25 days that I did. Because New York said if somebody fails a drug test for smoking a joint of weed, they shouldn't go to solitary for 90 days or 180 days. The culmination of everything that happened, the beatdown, getting all that solitary, not even lasting 20 days at this new prison that's closer to my home, so good for my family. I'm sitting there in this medical unit. I wanted to end my life, but I can't because I'm being watched by a guard 24/7 now because they know I'm suicidal. It was just the comprehension. My brain could not comprehend it. My brain and my body could not comprehend how I would survive another 90 plus days of solitary. And it ended up being, I went down for my hearing about 3 days later for that smuggling charge. They couldn't tell what the pills were because I mushed them up, so they just charged me with smuggling. And the lieutenant who did my hearing was one of the biggest assholes I've ever met in prison. I've said this in other videos, 95% of the guards I met were good men and women just there to do their job. They treat you with respect, you know, as long as you show them respect back. But there was 5% that were complete, just, I don't know why, just miserable, pissed off, hate life. This guy was one of them. I'm not going to say his name in case I ever go back, and I don't want to be known as that guy, but this lieutenant, and word on the street was he was pretty crooked too. But this lieutenant was one of the most miserable assholes I've ever met. I sat down in the hearing chair. They bring me in the basement, cuff me to the chair. I'm sitting there. It's an old school desk, so they cuff me to the school desk. The school desk is welded to the ground. I'm sitting there. I'm shaking. I'm freezing. I'm like this. You know, they're pulling, and now I got pulled out of suicide watch for this hearing. So a normal guy'd be down there in his uniform. I'm down there in this paper apron on suicide watch, freaking out. I got a nurse and a guard watching me, and normally they don't have both of them. The lieutenant goes through the paperwork. You got caught doing this or that. How do you plead? There was 2 eyewitness guards that saw everything. I had no argument, so I plead guilty. You know, and usually if you plead, you're guilty 99.99999% of the time in a hearing in New York State prison, you're guilty, whether you are or you're not. I know of guys that have went down to a hearing with over a dozen witnesses to testify on their behalf, still got found guilty. Because it's just, you're an inmate, you're wrong, period. So I plead guilty, and the lieutenant says, the max I can give you is 30 days, but because of your history, I can give you another 30 for second time charge. So I'm giving you 60 days. That's the max I can give you by the hearing laws of New York State Department of Corrections. I wish these laws weren't in place because I'd easily hand you 180 days for trying to smuggle. I just, my body crumbled, like physically, like I passed out from words. just added another 60 on, so I got another 5 months in solitary. And he's telling me basically he's trying to figure out any way to add on as much more time as possible. In my brain, these are numbers that just aren't comprehensible. I've said this in other videos. My neighbor, when I was in that first time, stabbed somebody through the cheek with this nice big shank he had. Boom! Right through the cheek. The guy had a hole in his cheek for the rest of his life. They had to staple it shut. He's got a huge scar. I mean, I don't know if he was going for the cheek, but I think he was trying to kill him. His sentence was less than mine for trying to smuggle sleeping pills. I couldn't comprehend that. And maybe I'm wrong. There's people that disagree with me, but I'm a guy with known mental health, had a suicide attempt the first time in solitary that they have on record, and failed the drug test, 90 days for that. I thought that was a little excessive. And then smuggling sleeping pills that, and this guy who's, stabbing people with no mental health history has less time than me. I don't see how that equates. And New York State Appellate Court agreed with all of us solitary inmates. That's why that lawsuit went into effect, when they're saying these sentences don't fit the crime. You're sending, drug addicts, pregnant women, teenagers, people with major mental health disorders to solitary for months and years on end for these minor infractions. People were going to solitary for movement violations. Basically, like, if it's 9 a.m. and they ring the bell, you have till 9:05 to get to your job or your class. If it's 9:07 and you walk in, you can get in trouble for not being where you're supposed to be. 2 minutes and they're sending people to solitary. These little infractions, there's certain boxes you could smoke cigarettes outside, like certain areas. They're giving people solitary for being 2 feet outside the box. The box is full. There's 10 guys in there. Like, they don't equate. It doesn't add up. But all that combination of all that and the suicide attempts and the extra solitary time, I physically, the next week was like, I couldn't move, I didn't eat. They told me they were gonna force me to eat, put me on a feeding tube if I didn't eat, so I ate a piece of bread to not be put on a feeding tube, because if you don't eat for 3 straight days, they put you on a feeding tube forcefully. I didn't know what to do. I couldn't. Basically, in a 10-month span, I had 20 days free in general population. The rest was solitary. Some guys do better in solitary. I don't. I'll be the first to admit, I crumble, I break down. The isolation of circling this room for hours on end, days on end, is just, it's something my brain can't comprehend. So that's why November's tough. Also, to add on to it is the cold and the lights, the time when it gets dark at 4 p.m. All of it combined just is like a downer. So I've gotten a lot of support. Thank you all. I've worked out stuff with my sponsor to make sure I'm safe in November and stay on my recovery. But I appreciate all the love and support. You guys are awesome. That's it. Next video, I told you guys we have the fight video coming out. That's what we're going to talk about. It's going to be a good one because it's interesting and freaking crazy. If you missed the last couple, check them out. We're talking about, wreck in solitary, the BS lie of it, the one talking all about living like good fellas in prison and being cocky in prison and just, way overconfident. Check those out. Hit that subscribe. You guys are awesome. K Ruggs the Sober Dog, and I'm out. See ya.